The topic for this lesson is differentiating between skill deficits and performance deficits. When responding to problem behaviors within our classroom, one of the first things that we want to consider is why these problem behaviors are occurring. This way, we can adapt our behavior as educators and our instructional environments to better meet our students' needs. Skill deficits can be defined as can't-dos. In other words, our student physically can't complete a particular task. Performance deficits, on the other hand, can be defined as won't-dos. In other words, while students have the prerequisite skills needed to complete a particular task, they aren't sufficiently incentivized to complete this task. Let's take a step back and discuss an example of skill and performance deficits. Let's say you offer someone $1 million to do a backflip. $1 million is very reinforcing. But many people just physically can't do a backflip, so for them, that would be a skill deficit, a can't do. It's not that they don't want the $1 million, it's that they physically can't complete the task. Skill deficits serve as barriers to our students accessing reinforcement as well. For example, maybe our students struggle with math, writing, or reading tasks. They're engaging in problem behaviors as opposed to doing their work, and we say, well, why don't you just do your work? We're offering you tokens, extra recess time, edibles, preferred toys, different things like that, and you're still not doing what we're asking you to do. Students who exhibit challenging behaviors are often described as not responsive to reinforcement, when in actuality, it might not have anything to do with the reinforcement. They physically can't complete the task. They have that deficit related to math, reading, or writing, where they can't complete the task and it has nothing to do with the reinforcement. These are skill deficits. These are can't-dos. Again, think about the backflip. Everyone would love that $1 million, but they're not doing it because they can't do the backflip. It has nothing to do with the reinforcement contingency. Now, let's say you offer someone a nickel to run a lap around your house. Most people can complete that task. It's not that they can't do it. It's not a skill deficit. It's just they don't see the value in doing it for a nickel. The reinforcement is not sufficient to encourage or incentivize engaging in that behavior, and it's the same for some of our students. Maybe students perceive earning high grades as not worth the effort needed to consistently complete class assignments. Or maybe it's tokens as part of a token economy, and there's nothing to buy with tokens, or the school store isn't open often enough for us to be able to buy anything with those tokens anyway. So there's really no incentive to engage in tasks to earn tokens or extra recess time. That's the won't do, where students can complete the skill. They've got the prerequisite skills necessary for completing the task. They just might not see sufficient value in engaging in a particular behavior to access what we're offering as reinforcement. So we need to differentiate between skill and performance deficits before we move any further, because we approach both very differently. Skill deficits, those can't-dos. The two big ideas to keep in mind here are that we need to teach or reteach skills that are needed to complete the task, and we also need to monitor student progress. That is what we need to do to support students engaging in problem behaviors or not engaging in desired behaviors due to skill deficits. For example, let's say a student is engaging in tantrum behaviors during math fluency activities. We would need to teach and reteach math fluency skills. Then we need to monitor student progress. Maybe that's formative assessments, checks for understanding to make sure that our student is making progress, because odds are those problem behaviors aren't going to go away until those math skill deficits decrease or go away. We need to address the academic skill deficit before we can address the behavior. That's the takeaway with skill deficits. Same thing with social interaction. Maybe students don't have the prerequisite skills to interact appropriately with peers. We need to teach them how to address conflict, how to start conversations, different skills like that before we can expect the problem behaviors to disappear. Again, we're going to monitor those the same way, in an ongoing fashion to make sure that we're making progress related to those skills. Performance deficits, again, these are our won't-dos, where in this case, a student can complete the task, they just don't see the value in doing so. We need to re-examine our reinforcement contingencies. A great way to do that is incorporating student interests, current events, experiences, goals for the future, incorporating all of those into lessons to enhance instructional relevance, to make it to where there's an incentive to participate in class, and also ensure high rates of student success. Typically, we enjoy doing what we're successful with, so the more successful we can make our students, the more engaged they tend to be. Again, re-examining reinforcement contingencies within our classrooms, making sure that we're using high levels of social reinforcement to maintain those desired behaviors. Again, modeling passion and enthusiasm for learning. It seems like a really simple thing, but if you model a passion and enthusiasm for your content, your students will emulate that, and they'll get into it as well. But again, with those performance deficits, those won't do's, we just want to enhance student engagement by re-examining reinforcement contingencies and structuring our environment to ensure time in, class participation for example, is more reinforcing than time out, withdrawing from class activities, for example. In other words, why engage in problem behaviors when it's way more engaging and way more fun and way more valuable to just participate in class because it's an engaging class atmosphere?